Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Aurum Podcasts and a happy new year. We are so glad that, first and foremost, you celebrated Christmas well and that you had a happy new year. 14 days later, I hope and believe that the 2023 indeed has begun well. I'm your host. My name is Anthony Kuria, and I'm so glad that you could join with us today. The Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, a HR and risk advisory consultancy, and our purpose is to build winning teams. That is why we have this podcast. With me today is my co-host and the MD Aurum Consultants, CHRP Zipi Kuria. Welcome, Zipi.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, our viewers, and a happy new year. It's good to be back this year. We thank God for us to be able to be here and looking forward to an interactive conversation this morning.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Zippy. Today we do not have another guest. Today we decided let's start the year just the two of us to have a conversation because that is really what we do here at the Aurum podcast. We have conversations about the main theme of this podcast is to help businesses, to help entrepreneurs, to help executives build winning teams. And we look at various areas of the workspace regarding HR. We look we look at from the perspective of uh, the shareholders of a business. We look at from the perspective of top management. We also attempt to look at the perspective of middle management, those that are out there heading departments, leading divisions, and also from the perspective of the soldiers, the foot soldiers on the ground floor, as it were, those who are making things happen. And last and with that theme, last month, in the month of December, we were talking about performance management and how to to ensure that KPIs, the key performance indicators, are set and adhered to both by the top management and by the rest of the institution as a whole. Now, we want to continue with the same theme, but today we want to look, this month, we want to look at the theme of leading through people. As you all know, that it is in the 21st century, it has become very clear that it's very important for top management, for owners of institutions and companies to realize that it is through people that you succeed. That if you are able to put up a strategy of building winning teams, then you have given yourself a very competitive edge. And in particular, today we want to look at the theme of what's the role of top management in leading, in providing leadership. We want to look at what is the role of the CEO in particular and the top management in leading, in giving direction to their teams. So Zippy, this is something we have discussed it in different ways. We have gotten uh, very qualified guests over the last few years to discuss issues regarding what's the role of the CEO, what's the role of the director, what's the role of top management. But today we want to look at it from the perspective of leading through people. So, from your perspective, what is the role of the CEO in leading through people?
Thank you, Anthony. When you talk about the CEO, we are basically talking about the top management.
Yes.
And I think everything rises and falls on leadership. So the direction the organization takes is pegged on the leadership of the top executive of that organization. And for most of us who are leading organizations, people are looking up to us to see where are we taking this organization? What kind of values do we have? What are we talking about? And are we actually translating what we are talking about into action? And as leaders, I think it's important for us to really take personal interest in the long-term development of our people. If you're going to lead people, it's very critical for you to have interest in their well-being. It's important to have interest in their own personal development, because if they don't develop as individuals, then they can never step up to be leaders. They can never step up to be probably where you're at. Most of us might be CEOs today, but in another 5 or so years, we may not be there, and we need people to step up to those positions. So for me
Yes.
to be able to lead people well, I need to be able to develop them. From a place of what they do on a daily basis, including their social skills, how they communicate to people, how they relate with other people. That is very key. And again, most of us, when we start this journey of leading, we lead like captains. And a captain is basically the people are just following you. Okay. But as leaders, we must start getting to a place where we are a coach to our team. And when you are a coach, you start leading through people. But when you are a captain, you are actually just being the leader. You're just leading others and they're just following you. And that is not sustainable, especially in a growing organization. When the organization is small, it's true, yes, you can be the captain, you can lead and others follow you. But when you start leading a big organization and the organization starts to evolve and starts growing, then you must start putting in the shoes of a coach, and you must coach your people to step up into leadership and for you to actually lead through them. And it's okay when the team is very small, because a lot of us start from there. But as we grow, we have to change our mindset. We can't always use the same approach and expect things to change. We must evolve as the organization is growing. We were having a conversation with fellow CEOs just yesterday, and one of the things we were talking about was saying, as an organization grows, as a leader, you must grow. And this is one of them where, as a leader, yes, you are leading and others are following you. But as the organization grows, and maybe you started with 2 employees or 1 employee, and now you have 20 employees, are you being effective just leading them and then following you? Or are you going to be effective if you become a coach and start raising leaders for the organization? Now, as a leader, for you to be able to lead through people, one of the critical things you must do is communicate the vision of the organization. And regardless of how good your statement is, your vision statement is, or how effective you think it is, I think the ball stops where you communicate that. How do you communicate it? Is it well understood? The people you're working with, do they understand where this organization is going? And one of the things you must do as a CEO is make sure you speak about the vision over and over and over again. And sometimes it feels you're repeating yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it only sticks to the mind of people if it's constantly on their faces. If you're constantly talking about it, then they get to actually hear more about it, and they get to understand, they get to synthesize, and they get to actually start, realizing this vision is important for the organization. You also need to be very consistent with the vision. Don't have one vision, but your practice is totally different. And sometimes as leaders, we need to be very self-aware. We need to be conscious of the vision we have put in place for our business. And we need to actually act what the vision is, or what the mission of the organization is. You pick one thing and your actions are totally different. You need to be very consistent. The other thing I found very powerful is when you tell the vision as a story. When it's just a statement that people don't understand where you're coming from, what meant you get to where you're at and where you're going, sometimes it might not make a lot of sense. But when you start telling it like a story, it's making a lot of sense. When you're talking about the history of the organization, how you came to be, where we are going, the pain point of your customer, then it starts to make a lot of sense to your employees. Okay, so communicating the vision effectively will ensure that employees can answer a few key questions. And one of those questions is, what is the vision of this organization? It pains me a lot when I go for trainings and I engage employees who've been in the organization for probably 5 or 10 years, and they actually cannot say the vision or the mission of the organization, even the values. And that tells you a lot about the culture of that organization. So if you're communicating your vision effectively, if you're leading through your people, one of the key questions your employees should be able to answer is, what is the vision of the organization? The other question they need to be able to answer is, what is my role in achieving this vision? And this makes the employee understand, this is where I fit into this organization. This is what I'm supposed to be doing to contribute towards achieving this vision. And the other thing the employees need to be able to answer is, what are the obstacles that are preventing me from contributing to the vision of the organization? And once they understand the vision, they're able to understand how they're achieving it, and they're able to understand what are the obstacles. Then they're able to navigate through those obstacles and they're able to achieve the objectives. And the other question the employees should be able to answer is, can I explain this vision to others? So if you're raising team leaders in your organization, can they be able to actually explain that vision to the people they are leading? And I think if you start doing those things as a CEO, as a senior manager, then you will start realizing employees start actually understanding what this organization is all about, and there's a sense of belonging, and they will be able to support you in achieving that vision. Back to you,
That is,
Anthony.
yes, thank you, Zippy. That is very, very interesting. To you, our viewers and our listeners, wherever you are, as you can hear, this conversation is starting to warm up. The engine is starting to crank up. So if you have comments, you have suggestions, something we are saying that you collaborate with, or you have a question, what do you mean by this or that? Kindly shoot those questions. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. So kindly write the questions, write the comments. We would love to highlight them as we continue live on this podcast. Now, Zippy, you have said something very interesting, that first and foremost, that as a CEO, your first job is to communicate the vision, to communicate the strategic direction. That's the number one. That's the number one role of a director. But then, in communicating it, you have said something very interesting, and to our viewers and listeners, I'm sure you have learned something new here. That you can either communicate like a captain, commander, or you can communicate like a coach. Yeah, you can communicate like a commander in chief, the CNC of this company, commander in chief, because captain is basically a military term. It's about this where we're going, guys, no questions. Shika mwendo tuende kazi. Or you can choose to communicate like a coach. We all know coaches, football coaches. We have coaches who train us on other sports. Go to aerobics. If you play basketball, if you could be a music coach. We know a coach does not just command, but he encourages, he exhorts, he rebukes. You stop doing that. You do this. But at the same time, there is a persistency in passing the message across. That's a very powerful point, Zip, is here that you have brought in. That, and the point that I came through for me is that you must be a coach before you are a captain. That when you're leading your team as a director, as a top manager, you must first wear the cape of a coach. You communicate. For example, I am a football fan. I like observing how football coaches communicate. They're telling guys, you know what, we are going to change. This is the strategy we are going to use against this team. Or this is the strategy we are going to use this season, especially now that it's the beginning of the year. I can imagine coaches, as before tournaments begin, they have already strategized this how we are going to act. We have gotten these players. So this is how we are going to do it. So we are working with the strength of this player is good, is tall, he can be able, if it is soccer, he'll either play in defense or he'll play in attack. Either he'll defend or he'll help us score goals. If this player is skillful, we'll put them in a certain position. So the coach, you first know the capabilities and skills of your team. And then secondly, you communicate what you intend to achieve like now we're talking about vision and vision. And then thirdly, once you communicate, now you direct. Now they make sure that your team understands what they're supposed to do, and then they go out to do it. So you first become a coach before you become a captain. And in my opinion, as you were going, Zippy, it hit me that as time goes on, that director, that top manager, that CEO has to play the role of being both a coach and a captain. Because if it is only just cajoling people some people will get excuses as to why they should not do stuff. Then now the role of the captain comes in, where you give commands, guys, we've got to arrive to work by this time of the day. We've got to complete our assignments by this particular time. There will be consequences for failure to achieve all these. But at the same time, you're both training and you're both coaching and directing the teams the way they should go. And now, as a coach and a captain, what you have said is that you've got to speak the vision consistently. Consistently, you have to communicate that vision very consistently. And there was something as you were talking that hit me regarding communication, that the ultimate impact of the story that you're communicating depends on the CEO's willingness to make the transformation personal. That you, as the CEO, have to communicate and be seen to be the embodiment of what you're intending to do. You know, as again, I gave the example of a soccer coach or a basketball coach. If if you're a coach, for example, you want your team to be, physically fit. They need to be ready. They need to be physically ready. The players will not follow you if you're physically lazy. You are physically unfit. You are out of shape, and you're asking people to run sprints. You're asking people to run marathons. Same thing with the workplace. You cannot ask your staff to give commitment, yeah, to follow the vision if by your personal actions you're showing something different. You're requesting them, you're encouraging to be them for them to be early in their departments, in their workplace, and they're noticing you are consistently late. You're consistently late in doing your assignments, whatever you as the boss are doing. So the communication has to be personalized by the director, by the leadership, in order for it to have authenticity. And then I also noted that you have to find a way to engage others openly. That as you're dealing with people, you're communicating. So part of communication is the way you engage your team. They need to, they may be having questions. Okay, boss, you've told us to, this is our strategy, this is our vision. So how do I interpret it in this particular context? How do I interpret? I am, how do I communicate? How do I interpret the vision when I'm faced by this particular situation and circumstance? And that's why I like what you said at the beginning, that you must grow as your team grows. So you must be also learning as you find a way to help your team interpret the vision that you've given for them. So you have to be ready to help your team interpret the vision in particular visions. For example, you've decided, you've decided, for example, you're running a school and you've decided to go for a particular market, and your principals, your heads of whatever department come to you and tell you, sir, this we were asked this question by a parent, or we have this particular scenario. How do we do it? Because we are supposed to be the best school in this and that. So you as the CEO, I would presume the director, then you have to be educated and well informed enough to help your team interpret the vision in particular situations and circumstances. That way, you are communicating the strategic direction effectively. That Zippy, I think that is what I'm sure our viewers and listeners,
Yes,
if they're
very true.
attempting to understand what we've just talked about, these are some of the questions that they may be having. And to our viewers and listeners, even if the podcast is over and you still have questions, probably you're listening to this after the podcast, the live part is over, and you have questions, make sure you throw them in. We always look at the comments that come after we are off air, and we look for ways to answer them as we continue. So, Zippy, the second question, then the second point that comes in for the role of the CEO and management, I know there are quite a number, but the second one is how do you model the desired changes? Now you have communicated, but now remember, if you're going to lead a team and you've given them the vision, this is where we are going for 2023, this is what we want to do, then how do you, as the top manager, as the team lead, What's your take on how they should model the desired, behavioral, whatever changes that will bring the actualization of the vision?
Thank you, Anthony, for that question. And one of the things I think we must appreciate or understand is that organizational change is inevitable. The only thing that is constant in an organization is change, because organizations are always evolving, things are happening, and change is going to happen one way or the other. A lot of times I think we wait until we hear this change management in the organization happening. And I think by the time we get to a place where we are doing change management, there's a lot of things that have gone so wrong, and we are actually trying to rectify the things that have gone wrong in the organization. But what we need to adapt to is to understand change is constant and it's happening every day in an organization. And how do we prepare? How do we get ready for that? How do we make sure we are flowing with the change that is happening every day? And sometimes these changes are brought by many different things. It could be because of customer, shifting their demands. Maybe what we were giving before is not what the customer is wanting. Maybe it's technological change. Now we are moving to, uh, I'm looking for the word, innovating and making sure you're putting everything in technology where, everything is in a touch of a button. Maybe it's because you need to upgrade your processes. You need something to happen that would re-engineer the organization. And a lot of times you will find even your processes will change, and as they change, you need to communicate, you need to help the employees understand this is the way we are going to be able to do, or to to cooperate with the changes that are happening, so that we can meet our customers demands, because every business is there to serve a particular purpose. A lot of times we are there to serve a customer's need. That need you're serving will probably make the organization keep going depending on the demands the customer has. Now, again, it's important for us to realize people are the art of any effort to bring about an organizational change. I might be the CEO, but there's no way I will serve a million customers alone. I need to work with people, and that means people are the heart of, they are in the midst of it. They are the heart of that organization, and they require good leaders, excellent leaders, strong leaders who understand where they are going, who speak and act as they're speaking, not speaking one thing and doing something totally different.
Correct.
Your actions follow your words, follow your actions. And you're not they're just making all this manner of comments, but really your actions are totally speaking in a different way. So for us to be able to model these changes that are happening in the organization, first, and we must understand why the change is happening, what is going on that would desire these changes that are constantly happening in the organization. Maybe it's because of competition that would require us to keep on evolving and making sure our business is agile and we are moving towards the right direction. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the things is to make sure you constantly communicate the vision, constantly communicate where the business is going, constantly make sure that employees understand. It's like when you're taking a journey with your children, and I'm assuming you're moving from Nairobi to Mombasa, and probably they've never been there, or they've been there. The children will keep on asking you, are we near? Are we about to get there? And you have to keep on explaining to them, this is where we are going, this is how long it's going to take. It's going to be a
Yeah.
long journey. And you need to make sure they understand, the process. Otherwise, they will get frustrated and they will not enjoy the journey. And it's the same within an organization. If you don't explain, this is the journey we are taking, this is a vision, this is a destination, employees will get frustrated in the process. And it's not a good place for employees to be when they are frustrated, not because your vision is bad, but because they are probably confused and lost in the process. So as a leader, that communicating the vision constantly is very critical. Now, the other thing as a leader you must do is make sure you communicate the desired change. If there are changes that are happening, you must communicate. You cannot make assumptions. Now, when you're communicating, the other day we were training and we were saying there is communication and there is effective communication. A lot of times we do communication, we don't do effective and efficient communication. You need to make sure you have effective and efficient communication in the organization, and you're effectively and efficiently communicating that desired change to your team members. The other thing,
mm,
of course, we need to model expected behaviors. Maybe this is through processes and through the SOPs that you need to put in place, but you must model whatever expected behaviors you expect to see at the end of the day as a leader. Again, a lot of times we make assumptions and we start actually beating up ourselves when things start going wrong, or we start trading blame games. I don't think in running a successful organization there's a place for blame games. The place that is there is to make sure the vision is clear and you create the the pathways that people need to take to make sure you are achieving the objective and the mission of the business. The other thing is you need to make sure you're supporting employees. You can't expect an employee to deliver if you don't give them the necessary support. So give them all the support they need, whether it's training, whether it's coaching, whether it's mentorship, whether it's tools they need to be able to achieve the objective. Make sure you're giving them the necessary support. The other thing, of course, you need
mm,
to make sure you recognize success. When people
mm,
do what they're doing and they achieve, be quick to recognize that success, because everyone has a need to be recognized, to be told you
mm,
have done a good job, to be patted at the back. We are human beings and we expect, that recognition to happen. So when success happens, no matter how small it is, recognize it, and learn. Sometimes we are not self-aware, and sometimes we don't quickly see some of these successes, but when we see these
mm,
successes, it's important for us to recognize. Of course, the other thing that we must make sure we are doing is to manage non-performance. Again, you cannot overlook when there's non-performance and you're expecting change to happen.
mm,
You must manage
mm.
that non-performance. Managing non-performance does not necessarily mean you need to fire someone. Managing
Okay.
non-performance, you need to constantly monitor, you need to constantly help the employee, come back
Mm,
on track. If they are going off the track, bring them back to track, help them,
mm,
walk the journey with the rest of the team. And of course, if they are not able to fit in, of course, normally the end result will be to terminate. But making sure you are constantly managing that non-performance will even help this employee grow and be able to actually deliver more. I've seen situations where an employee is a non-performer at some point, and with the necessary support, you realize they turn around and they become one of the best performing employees. So again,
mm.
giving that support, I think, is very critical for you to be able to achieve, whatever the desired change you're modeling. Yeah. Back to you, Anthony.
Mhm. Wow, wow, wow. People, you're listening at the cutting edge of consulting here. And as you've heard, the modeling the desired change, you as the director of your institution, you're the CEO, the top management, you've got to model the changes that you want your team to lead. Remember, today we are discussing leading through teams, leading through people. And part of it, apart from communicating what needs to the direction that the organization is going or the department, you've got to also model it, because you you've got to remember change, like Zire Zipia said, change is the main constant, especially in the 21st century business environment. Change is the constant. And I like the way you've said, if you're embarking on change management, then in a sense there has been a lot of ultra, how do I put it, a lot has ultrified in your business. You've remained fixed in such a place where now you need, like as it were, a jolt of lightning, a jolt of or bolt of electricity to shift you guys radically to a different new position. It happens. Human beings don't love change, but it happens from time to time. So you've got to embrace uh, constant change even as you continue going. And I like the fact that you've said communicating. By modeling, it means utter it out, but also communicate the desired change. You've got to find a way to communicate effectively the desired change. And we've talked a lot about communication over the last 1 year, communication within the business aspect. So Zippy, thank you for that. To your viewers and listeners, what you've just had today is just a taste. The Kionjo too. It's just a taste of what we're able to offer here at Aurum, here at the Aurum podcast, and what we offer at Aurum Consultants. And we want to say, if that test has tested very nice and you'd like to know more, if you need our support, if you need our support for your organization, where you need to consult as a leader on how best to lead, kindly reach out to us. Kindly reach us to us here at Aurum Consultants. You can see our contacts at the bottom of your screen. You can get to us via Facebook, via YouTube, via LinkedIn. You can also reach out to us via our website, www.aurumconsultants.co.ke. Yes, and via these links, we can be able to come in and assist you. We do offer leadership trainings. If we do offer leadership trainings to help you and your team leaders uh, to come up to a place where they can be good leaders, they can be good captains and good coaches as well. So reach out to us. We will be able to offer you leadership training and help you to build winning teams. Zippy, thank you for that discussion. I'm sure next week we'll have we'll warm up to this subject by bringing in one or two experts. I believe we'll have a few other experts to get a divergent perspective that will help our audience be able to be better informed and take appropriate action. Having said that, we've come to the end of our podcast today. We want to thank you for joining us in this very first podcast of the year. And I believe this year we'll have a wonderful time together. It will be served hot, straight from the bakery, straight from the oven, straight from the sufuria for you. And so if you're there, you want to build a winning team for your company, for your organization, make sure every Saturday morning you join us. So Zippy, any last word before we close?
Wow. Thank you, Anthony. I'm definitely looking forward to more interactive sessions in the next couple of weeks. This year is going to be bigger, better. We are going to have more content coming to you. So tune in and we will be happy to engage with you.
All right. Thank you very much, Zippy. Having said that, people, this is the end of our podcast today. We look forward to doing this next week, same time, same place. So make sure you log in as we continue to discuss. Having said that, have a great weekend and God bless you.